I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me because of a random notification on her phone. And the scariest part was, it wasn't a stranger. It was the person I trusted most. If I hadn't looked at the screen then, I'd still be living in a fantasy. Before I begin, like and subscribe. Stories like this really happen, and you definitely don't want to miss the ending. I'm 23. Her name was Anya. We were together for almost 2 years, and I really thought it was serious. You know, when you're already mentally building a future with someone. I was at that point. We met through mutual friends. At first, everything was as usual: texting, walking, awkward jokes. But then she became something more to me. She was calm, caring, a little reserved. Not the type to flirt with everyone. And that's probably why I never even considered the possibility that she was capable of cheating. From the very beginning, we had a rule: no secrets. We knew each other's passwords, and our phones were safely next to each other. This created a feeling of complete security. I trusted her completely. Everything began to change about a month before that day. At first, little things. She started spending more time on her phone. Before, she could chat with me for hours, but now she was constantly distracted. I asked who she was talking to. She said she was talking to girls from work. Nothing suspicious, it seemed. But she started turning her phone face down. Always. Even at home. Then it got worse. She texted me less often, responded briefly, and sometimes disappeared for hours. And the strangest thing was, she was the same in person. She laughed, hugged me, said she missed me. It was mind-boggling. At some point, I started to think the problem was me. Maybe I'd become boring. Maybe too convenient. I even asked point blank if everything was okay between us. She smiled and said, "Of course." And I believed her. It happened in the evening. We were sitting at my house, watching a movie. She lay next to me, then got up and went into the kitchen for water. My phone was still next to me. The screen lit up. I wasn't planning on looking, really, but a notification popped up right before my eyes. "I miss you already. When will we see each other again?" And below it, a name. A name I knew. Very good. Everything inside me stopped. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a coincidence. But no, it was my friend. Someone who used to come to my house. Someone I trusted. And at that moment, everything came together: her behavior, her phone, the missing watch, everything. She came back, smiled, and sat down next to me, as if nothing had happened. And I looked at her and realized that next to me was someone I no longer knew. I didn't make a scene. I didn't show that I'd seen the message. Because at that moment, I wanted to know the whole truth. Not just a piece. Everything. I simply said, "I'm going to take a quick shower," and took her phone with me. Then it got worse. She texted me less often, responded briefly, and sometimes disappeared for hours. And the strangest thing was, she was the same in person. She laughed, hugged me, said she missed me. It was mind-boggling. At some point, I started to think the problem was me. Maybe I'd become boring. Maybe too convenient. I even asked point blank if everything was okay between us. She smiled and said, "Of course." And I believed her. It happened in the evening. We were sitting at my house, watching a movie. She lay next to me, then got up and went into the kitchen for water. My phone was still next to me. The screen lit up. I wasn't planning on looking, really, but a notification popped up right before my eyes. "I miss you already. When will we see each other again?" And below it, a name. A name I knew. Very good. Everything inside me stopped. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a coincidence. But no, it was my friend. Someone who used to come to my house. Someone I trusted. And at that moment, everything came together: her behavior, her phone, the missing watch, everything. She came back, smiled, and sat down next to me, as if nothing had happened. And I looked at her and realized that next to me was someone I no longer knew. I didn't make a scene. I didn't show that I'd seen the message. Because at that moment, I wanted to know the whole truth. Not just a piece, but everything. I simply said, "I'm going to take a quick shower," and took her phone with me. What I saw next broke everything inside me. And that was only the beginning. I closed the bathroom door behind me and just stood there for a few seconds, staring at her phone. My hands were shaking slightly. Only one thought was running through my head. If I open this now, there's no turning back. But I already knew I would. I unlocked the screen. The password hadn't changed. Just like our trust, which, as it turned out, was an illusion. The first thing I did was open that same chat. It was pinned at the top. That alone hit me. I clicked, and the first message I saw wasn't from him, but from her. "I miss you too. We haven't seen enough of you today." My stomach clenched. I started scrolling higher, and the further I went, the worse it got. This wasn't a what-time mistake. This wasn't we accidentally messaged. This had been going on for at least 3 weeks. 3 weeks behind my back. There were the usual things: "Good morning, how was your trip? What are you doing?" But in between, something unmistakable. Flirting, hints, meetings, messages like, "I felt so calm with you, and he doesn't suspect a thing." At that moment, everything went black before my eyes. I even sat on the edge of the bathtub because it was too hard to stand. I kept scrolling, and I found what finally broke me. Photos. Not anything explicit, but enough to understand everything. She sent him photos of herself, ones she'd never sent me, and his responses. I won't repeat them in full, but there was no doubt that their relationship had been more than just texting for a long time. And then there was more. They discussed meetings. And the worst part was, I started learning the dates. One day, I remembered it perfectly. That day, she told me she was going to see a friend. I'd already wished her a good evening. And in the messages, I saw, "I'm on my way, come out." That was him. And her response, "Waiting." At that moment, something inside me completely broke. Not just anger, not even pain. It's a kind of empty, cold feeling. When you read and are no longer surprised, you simply register the fact you've been betrayed. But the hardest part was further down. I scrolled almost to the beginning of their conversation, and I saw who texted first. It was him, my friend. He'd texted her something incredibly neutral, like "How are you?" after we'd all seen each other. And she'd responded. At first, it was dry. Then it warmed up a bit, and then she started texting first. And that's when it became clear. It wasn't he stole her. It was mutual. I scrolled a little further and saw a message that truly made me shudder. She'd written to him, "It's somehow truly easy with you. Not like with him. With him that's with me." I just stared at those words and couldn't believe they were coming from the man who'd been lying on my shoulder an hour ago. I locked my phone and closed my eyes for a second. I just wanted to go out, open the door, and tell him everything right away. Right away. But then another thought occurred to me. Easy. They'd been doing this behind my back for so long. Lied, smiled, looked me in the eye. And now, just saying I know everything, it felt like it wasn't enough. I unlocked my phone again and started taking screenshots. Everything. Conversations, dates, messages. I even forwarded a few files to myself, in case she denied everything later. Because at that moment, I already knew she would lie. Until the very end. And you know what's strangest? While I was doing this, I completely calmed down. It was as if some kind of cold mode had switched on. No emotions, just actions. Save, record, understand. I put the phone back and left the bathroom. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through something on her laptop. She looked up at me and smiled. "What took you so long?" And in that moment, I realized she had no idea it was all over. For me, that was for sure. I sat down next to her. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw not her, but simply the person who had betrayed me. And a plan was already beginning to form in my head. I decided I wouldn't make a scene right away. I'll make sure the truth comes out in front of him. At the same time, do you think he made the right decision not to tell right away? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe. The next part will feature a meeting neither of them will forget. A plan began to form in my head almost immediately. No hysteria, no unnecessary words, cold and precise. I understood that if I just blurted it all out now, they would start trying to wriggle out of it. They would say it was not what you think, that nothing happened, that you got it all wrong. And the worst part was, part of me might even believe it. So, I needed facts. And a moment where they both couldn't get out of it. I sat next to her, pretending everything was normal, even answering her questions. She was telling me about some situation at work, laughing. And at that moment, I was already texting him. Yes, him. My friend. I opened a chat with him and typed, "Listen, let's see each other tomorrow. We have something to discuss." He replied almost immediately, "No problem." What happened? I paused deliberately, then typed, "Not over the phone. Let's do it in person." He clicked OK and suggested meeting that evening. I agreed. All this time, she sat next to me, half a meter away, and she had no idea that I already knew. Now, the next step. I needed her there too, but in a way that wouldn't give her any hint. I turned to her and said as calmly as possible, "Listen, let's go out somewhere tomorrow evening. It's been a while since we've had a proper chat." She thought for a second, then nodded. Okay, she even smiled. And at that moment, something inside me stabbed. Not because I'd changed my mind, but because it became completely clear she didn't feel any guilt at all. The next day, everything went on as usual. We texted, she said good morning, sent me some memes. And if I hadn't seen that text, I would never have thought someone could live a double life so calmly. Later that evening, I texted him again, 7 p.m., same place. He replied, "Okay, I'll be there." I told her almost the same thing, "Let's do it at 7 p.m. I'll reserve a table." She agreed. That's it. The trap was set. The hardest part was waiting. Those few hours dragged on as long as possible. I caught myself replaying their messages over and over in my head. Her words, his messages. And each time, anger welled up inside me. But I suppressed it, because I needed to make it until evening. We arrived a little early. I deliberately chose a spot where the three of us could sit comfortably and where I could clearly see the entrance. We sat at the table. She was talking, I nodded, but I barely listened. I was staring at the entrance. And then, at some point, the door opened. He walked in. He looked around. He noticed us. And his face showed his usual reaction at first. And then confusion. Because he clearly didn't expect to see her next to me. He walked up to the table. There was a pause of literally a couple of seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I'm the first to break the silence, so you're just in time. Have a seat. He sits slowly. He looks from me to her. She, too, begins to tense a little, because she senses something is wrong. Have you met? He asks, trying to pretend everything is normal. I look at him and calmly answer yes. For a long time, she looks at me, then at him. And at that moment, I see the first understanding appear in her eyes. A slight panic. Not yet recognition, but already fear. He tries to say something, but can't find the words. And then I take out my phone, slowly, without rushing. I open the gallery, and simply turn the screen towards them. The first message. A screenshot. Then the next. And another. The silence at the table becomes heavy. Almost physically. She looks at the screen, and her face changes. Completely. First shock. Then an attempt to say something. But there are no words. He looks away. And in that moment, it becomes completely clear neither of them is even going to deny it. Come on, I say calmly. Who's going to start? She's first. It's not what you think. I even chuckled. Because it was so predictable. Seriously. I say. Then explain. She starts to fumble. She says that it was complicated, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that it was an accident. And then he intervenes. Listen, let's do this without a scene. I turn to him. And at that moment, all that cool reserve begins to crack. Without a scene. I repeat, are you seriously saying this now? He remains silent. Because there's nothing to say. And it's at that moment that everything starts to come out. I wasn't going to hold back any longer. And what happened next was unstoppable. Who do you think is more to blame, her or her friend? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe. What follows is the most brutal moment of the whole story. Do you think he made the right decision not to tell right away? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe. The next part will feature a meeting neither of them will forget. I looked at them one by one and felt everything I'd been holding back until that moment well up inside me. All the anger, all the resentment, all that feeling that I'd been made to look like an idiot. And the worst part was, they were sitting in front of me and trying to smooth it over somehow. As if that was even possible. Just calm down now, he said, looking at me as if he had the right to say anything at all. I didn't even answer right away. I just stared at him for a few seconds. Are you seriously telling me to calm down right now? He looked away, no longer as confident as usual. And in that moment, I realized he was afraid. Not even of me, but of the fact that everything had come to light. She tried to take control of the situation. She placed her hand on my desk, as if she could still influence anything. Listen. It's really not what it looks like. I abruptly pulled my hand away. Don't touch me. And at that moment, something broke in her eyes. She realized there was no going back. Then tell me what it looks like, I continued. Because I see messages where you tell him you're better off with him than with me. Where you meet behind my back. Where you lie to my face. Did I get that wrong too? She fell silent. Completely. And then he spoke. Listen, this wasn't planned. It just happened. I turned to him. It just happened. I even chuckled, but it wasn't laughter anymore. You've been texting my girlfriend for 3 weeks. You've been seeing her. You've come to my house. You've been sitting with me talking. And this just happened. He started saying something about not wanting to ruin things, that he himself doesn't know how things got this far. Classic. Utterly empty words that meant absolutely nothing. But then it got worse. She suddenly said, "You're not perfect either." And at that moment, I simply fell silent. Because I didn't expect that. What? You haven't noticed me lately. You've become cold. I was lonely. I looked at her and didn't believe it. So that's an excuse. I'm not making excuses. I'm just explaining. Are you explaining why you cheated on me with my friend? She fell silent again, but her face showed the struggle going on inside her. She didn't feel entirely guilty, and that was probably what hit her the hardest. I looked at him. What about you? What's your explanation? He shrugged. Really, just shrugged. I didn't think you'd find out. And that was the final word. Not I'm sorry. Not it's my fault, but I didn't think you'd find out, as if the problem wasn't that he did it, but that he got caught. I stood up from the table, slowly, without any sudden movements. You know what's funny? I said, I really trusted you both. No one answered. I trusted you with my life. I looked at her. And you? I turned my gaze to him. I trusted you like a brother. He looked away again. She looked at the table. And you both just. I paused. Blew it for what? There was no answer. Because there couldn't be one, I took out the money and put it on the table. I didn't even check to see if there was enough. At that moment, it didn't matter at all. She said quietly, wait. I paused for a second. What? Let's talk normally. Without all this. I turned to her and, for the first time in the entire conversation, Said as bluntly as possible, "We have nothing more to talk about." And it was true. He tried to interject. "To listen. Don't jump to conclusions." I didn't even hear the end. "You don't exist for me anymore." After these words, I simply turned and walked toward the exit. No shouting. No fighting. No unnecessary words. Because at some point you realize people have already shown who they are. And nothing more needs to be said. I went outside. I took a deep breath. And only then did I realize how deeply all this had affected me. Because there was no longer any anger inside. There was emptiness, and the feeling that the two closest people in my life had just become strangers. I thought that would be the end of it. But I was wrong. Because the worst was still to come afterward. What would you have done in his place? Leave the same way, or do something differently? Tell us in the comments. And subscribe. The next part will feature something he didn't expect at all. I was walking down the street, not even sure where I was going. I was simply moving forward, because sitting there for even a second longer was impossible. My head was empty. There were no thoughts, no emotions, just a dull, blank feeling, as if everything inside me had been turned off. My phone vibrated after just a couple of minutes. I took it out. It was her. Several messages in a row. "Let's talk. You've got it all wrong. Please answer." I looked at the screen and simply blocked it, without even opening the chat, because whatever she wrote wouldn't change anything. But it didn't end there. A minute later, he started calling. I looked at the screen, and for the first time in a long time, I felt not anger, but a kind of disgust. I hung up. He called again and again. The third time, I simply turned off the sound and put the phone in my pocket. I walked to the nearest courtyard, sat down on a bench, and for the first time all evening, simply stopped. And then it all started to wash over me. All the moments, all the conversations, all the situations where I trusted them, and especially the ones where they knew the truth back then, but I didn't. And you know what was the hardest? Not the messages themselves, not the fact of cheating, but the realization of how many times they'd looked me in the eye and lied, calmly, without a doubt. I sat like that for about 20 minutes, maybe more. Time stopped feeling like time. And at some point, I realized one simple thing. I didn't want to go back to this. Not to her, not to him, not to this situation. I turned my phone back on. The messages grew even more numerous. She wrote long text justifications, explanations, requests to meet. He wrote shorter ones. "Let's talk like men. Don't rush into things." I scrolled through it all and simply deleted both chats completely and answered. But the real ending of this story happened the next day. I woke up with a heavy head, but with some strange clarity. It was as if everything inside me had already made a decision for me. I opened social media, and the first thing I saw was her message. No longer a private message, a public post. She wrote a long text about how she made a mistake, that it had gone too far, that she had lost someone who was important to her. No names, no details. But everyone who knew us understood everything. And the comments under this post were already starting. Some were supporting her. Some were asking questions. Some were writing me private messages. And at that moment, I realized something else. She was still trying to control the situation. She was presenting it in a way that suited her, where she was the person who made a mistake, not the person who knowingly betrayed. I closed the post. No reaction, no response, because I no longer had anything to prove. Not to her, not to anyone else. And then something happened that I didn't expect at all. He texted me from a different number. In short, she started it all. I didn't want to pry. "Just so you know the truth." I read that message and wasn't even surprised. You know why? Because at that moment it became completely clear they're both the same. Not in what they did, but in how they behave afterwards. Shifting blame, looking for excuses, trying to look better than they really are. I didn't reply. I just blocked the number. And that's when the story truly ended. No big words. No last conversation. No attempts to get it all back. Just in one moment. Two people disappeared from my life. And, as harsh as it may sound, it was the right thing to do. Because sometimes betrayal isn't the end. It's a filter, which removes from your life those who were never meant to be there. If you watched to the end, write in the comments, would you have forgiven or left the same way? And don't forget to like and subscribe. There are even more intense stories ahead. Something he didn't expect at all.